Welcome to this screening of The Spoon, the Bow and the Knife, a very beautiful film about Sundqvist, a master wood carver. The film is made by his son Jögge Sundqvist, and he's here. He will introduce the film shortly. We will watch the film, and after that there's a Q&A session, so you can ask questions after the film. And then at 2:30 after that starts the masterclass. Jögge, to you. Thank you.
I'm very glad to be here. I'm very proud of coming from the north of Sweden and showing you this film about my father. This is a very long Scandinavian tradition, woodworking tradition, which goes back to, in my generations, we've done this for 10 generations, because I grew up with this. And to me, this was nothing really special, you know, to work with the axe and the knife. That was a common way of living. So, but in old days now, I realized that this knowledge about how to use the wood in this way, with the knife, and how to split it, and how to carve it, is a very unique and special technique all over the world. When the industrial society takes over, this is not very common. So I'm very proud of showing you this film today. It would be very nice. And afterwards we will have, as she said, a Q&A question. So, welcome.
You see, the text is important, but also what I like so much about your film is that you really show the craft and the gestures and the bodily knowledge that your father contains. And the only way to really document that is by film, because the only way you can really document movements is by making a film, which you did, and that's very beautiful.
Yeah.
My first question: how is it to make a film about your own father?
I've been thinking about this for about 10 years, but since I'm not a film producer at all, it was too much of a job to actually make it happen. But then you saw this guy in the film called Drew Langsner, who has had a workshop place in North Carolina for 30 years. He's an old friend of the family, and he visited us for 2-3 years ago now. And then he came up with this, raised the question, shouldn't we make a movie of your dad? And I said, well, I've been thinking about it. And he made 2 movies before. One of a Swedish craftsman, Bengt Lidström, who's also in this movie represented, and another a Swiss guy called Rudi Kohler. So he had the knowledge. So we started this discussion, but after a while he made me a phone call and said, I'm 70 years old and I'm not, you know, prepared for making another film, so you have to make it yourself. And at about that time I realized I had to finance it, and I didn't know if you recognized it in the texts in the end of the film, but we have a national craft council in Sweden, which can give you money for special craft projects, and they gave some money. And then the next thing was to raise up a Kickstarter site where we founded this film on Kickstarter. And that was, I think, one of the first Kickstarter projects in Sweden, especially in crafts. And that was a long journey actually to make it happen. I can tell a little more about that.
Well, you told me this morning something interesting, that before crafts were not easily subsidized or not easily sold. There are other films on crafts in America that sold 20 copies.
Yeah.
And then you put it on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And what happened?
It was an explosion, actually. I couldn't realize how much power there is in such websites as Kickstarter. For the first thing was that it was very hard for a Swede to make it happen in the United States, because you had to be an American citizen to make a Kickstarter site. But then I had a contact in New York, a guy who's at the board of country workshops, and he said he wanted to help helped me. And he's a finance guy in Manhattan, in New York, very trained in doing stuff like paper stuff and stuff like that. So he helped me out with that, and then we made a PDF and we send information to the network that me and Ville have in United States since the 70s. And there's a lot of local woodworkers that have craft classes all around the United States. It's not that many people, it's about 5,000–10,000 people. But I send PDF descriptions about the film to the leaders, which had taken classes from me and my father in the United States, so they knew about us. I sent the PDF about 2 weeks before the Kickstarter was released on the website. So they knew about it. So when they had their carving meetings, they had a PDF, and this film is going to happen on a Kickstarter. So I was actually, the story is like this, when I was having an exhibition in the southern part of Sweden, because I'm an artist and I do stuff like that, and I said to myself, before I go, I have to put this up on Kickstarter. And then I went off, it's a long drive, it was a 15-hour drive to the southern part. And about that time, my cell phone was, making a lot of strange sounds that I haven't heard. But of course, I couldn't check it in my car, so I had to stop a few hours, after a few hours. And then I found that it was the Kickstarter people who were actually adding money on Kickstarter. And we had the goal for $5,000, which is about 500 euros, something like that. And we should have that for 45 days. And I said to myself, this is probably not going to work. And if it don't work, then you have to give the money back to the founders if you don't raise the goal. That's the rules of Kickstarter. But after 24 hours, I was up in $3,400, something like that. And after 45 days, we had $13,000, almost more than doubled the goal that we had. So I was very happy for that. And that made it happen, actually.
That's excellent, yeah. So yeah. That's also the power of platforms like this, which is new, that you can do it through crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Your father is still alive?
He's still alive. He was 87 when we recorded this. This was actually last summer. And he's turning 89 this fall. And he told me this spring, he was very glad that we actually did this recording last summer, because this year he said, probably I couldn't have made it this year. So I'm very happy we did.
What does he think about the film? Is he happy with it?
He is very happy with it. And the interesting thing with my father is that he always been very, very eager to tell everyone how they should do it. If he sees someone that actually don't make it right, he takes this person's hands and arms and say, you should have the power from here instead. He's very, offensive when he's teaching, and I like that a lot.
Is that how he taught you?
Yeah, he taught me like
yeah?
that. Yeah.
In an offensive way?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you did become a master yourself.
Yeah, I did. He never actually said anything to me that I had to be. So, but when you look back on it, you can tell that his lust of carving was kind of coming to me. So I always felt this lust of shaping and designing things in wood. So that's why.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Are there any questions from the audience?
Do you have more brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have 2 more brothers.
And they are into carving?
The younger one, not the older one.
Okay.
Yeah. Not so much, but a little. Yeah. Question?
First of all, thank you for the beautiful film, and I think it does make a difference. What I want to ask you is, your film is about preserving old techniques. But your father is also using modern stuff like a Tormek sharpener, like a diamond whetstone. How traditional do you think your craft must be taught to people?
Okay, there is two questions. How traditional he is and how traditional I think they should be. Okay. What sometimes feels a little strange with my father is that he's raised in the 30s, 20s and 30s and 40s where they had to fight for surviving, and they had to work very hard. So in the 50s and 60s when technology, increases, it was a big help for them. So that kind of men in that generation, they think that machines are really good because it helps them so much to work more easily. But what he found out when in the mid-70s was that the tradition was starting to be lost, because he met these old farmers, as you saw some of them in the film, that came to this craft center and should be trained to do more craft. And my father, he grew up in the same situation as they did, and he thought that they could use the knife. But then he was so astonished and amazed that they couldn't use all these grasps that he actually taught when he was a child. So he said to himself, now I have to actually make a book and show everyone how you use it. But because what he could tell that the knife is so, if you train yourself and your skillness with the knife, you can do amazing things with just 10 grasps. And if you train yourself very good with them, you can be very, very skilled with them. And that could, in a forming way, in a designing way, it's absolutely the best tool ever. Although it's a kind of simple tool, but it's the best tool. So there is, in his concern, it's a designing tool, and it's very easy to shape things. That's the forehand he looked upon it. But then on traditional ways, which was the second question, it's pretty hard. When technology gives you easy ways of sharpen, for example, which is much more handy than using older stuff. You tend to use them because what you want to do is woodwork. You want to do very good woodwork, and sharpening has to be fast, and then you use technology for that. It's the same with when the Japanese saws came to us in Europe. We took them to our hearts because they were so good. We want to have good tools. It's very important. Is that an answer? Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I was wondering how the exchange of the traditions in the green woodworking field is, because I've been training here in Holland. Of course, we have two traditions. The old ones of the clog making, which was also a green woodworking tradition. My grandfather used a lot of wood making around his farm. But then you also have, now, there's a whole input of a person who came to Holland and who trained in England with the green woodworking style, which uses the what is it called, the shaving horse and all that kind of thing. So I was wondering, how is the exchange?
The international exchange.
Yeah, or I mean, also traditionally, was there any influence, from instance, from Holland, the clock making?
Okay, I get it.
Had different tools also.
Yeah, of course. To me, craft is not a national thing. It's an international thing, because it has moved all over, and we have the same traditions in Scandinavia as we had in Russia and in Finland and Latvia and all other countries. And I studied folk art and craft for 30 years, and what I can tell is that the base of the real craft is that they have a very high material knowledge, They know exactly what they can do with the local materials, and then they have the tools which they can produce in that area. So first time I was in New York was in early 80s, and I was visiting an Indian museum, North American Indians, and I was so happy because I saw spoons and I saw ladles, I saw bowls that were in the same tradition as mine, but a little different in shape, of course. But they were made exactly the same way. So I felt I have friends there. Wow, isn't this amazing? They work in the same tradition as me. Of course, they developed some different kind of styles and different kind of techniques, like the North Americans. They have a krumm knife, which is used mainly from your body and away from your body, with a little bend like that, because they have the cedar. The cedar trees are very easy to split, and they can use it mainly for make planks almost, and make canoes and stuff like that. So, and in Sweden, I prefer not to talk about the Swedish tradition. I would like to talk about the Scandinavian tradition, because it's a little not exactly the same as Russia and Finland. It's a little difference. So, and I mean, we had a lot of tools and techniques and ways that come from Europe originally. We had a lot of Germans coming to Sweden in the 1600s, which brought especially the blacksmithing skills to us. And also the shaving horse, I have a little guess it comes from Europe in the very beginning. And the froe, which we use now, wasn't very common up in the north, the splitting froe. It was mainly a European method. But I mean, the ground is the same. We are standing on the same level, working with high material knowledge, high skilled technical knowledge, and a tradition. And then, in my opinion, we have also this folk art tradition. And this is my way of trying to explain the word slöjd, as you met in this film. And that's a Swedish word, slöjd. And I know you don't have it here, but I asked an old professor in words, if you do understand what I'm talking about. And he said that the word slöjd, you should be proud of that word, because that's an old Viking word. And it's still left in our dialect up in Västerbotten, where I grew up. But we say slöjd there instead of slöjd. But we never said that anyone was slöjd in their hands. It means crafty, handy, very smart, a smart maker of making things. But in my country, they never said that they were crafty. They said, they had two negations. They said, you are not uncrafty. And that's very special for our part in the country. We never say we are proud of anything. We say we are not unproud. Do you get it? So we're not uncrafty. And that's a way of saying it.
So, one last question. If there's another question? No?
Just some curiosity,
Yeah.
what are you wearing on your belt? It has nothing to do with the film. Perhaps it does, perhaps it's not.
Yeah, this is a knife. We're going to have a workshop later, and this is a Mora knife, which I made the handle and the sheath for. This is one of the best knives you can work with today, actually. And this is sold. This is the main manufacturer for knives in Sweden, for Mora. It's called a Mora knife. But in United States, this knife is called the Swedish slöjd knife. So they adapted the word slöjd, and I'm happy for that. And of course, I make my own handles and stuff like that. But this blade is laminated, so it has a hard core and the softer steel on the sides. So it's very easy to grind on a grinding stone and to hone also. And I grind down them, and then I replace them. So I take a new blade and put back in there so I can use it. So this is why, yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the masterclass? We have a masterclass for advanced woodworkers, which starts at 2:30 in iFabrica. We collected some wood, and you were happy about the wood. So can you tell us something about this masterclass, what you're going to do?
Yeah, I would like to teach you some of the main carving grasps, which are, you know, basics in carving almost everything. So when you learn them, it takes actually a few years to be very skilled at them, but when you have learned them, they are very, very useful, and you never forget them at all. You saw some of them in the film, and I can add some new ones in them. So the workshop will be based on non-producing, not making anything special. Maybe we can, but I want you to learn knife crafts and how a knife cuts, and to use your body and leverage and powers and all that stuff. And that is, it's pretty short with 1.5 hours, but we have good wood, we have linden, and we have alder. I don't know if you know what kind of wood this is in English, but it's green wood, so it's fresh, and it's pretty soft wood, so it's good to carve in, so it shouldn't be any problem. And I prepared by splitting them out with a throw, so we have small sticks, so we can just use them till we find that the carved grasps are working. So,
excellent.
Yeah, I have plaster too.
How many people are in the masterclass?
We have 9 people, but there's still place. If you're an advanced woodworker and you still want to join, you're welcome to join. You have to buy a ticket. Yeah, but also for the masterclass, there's a separate ticket. If you want to join, very welcome. We have a lot of wood.
Yeah.
Plenty of wood for more people who are interested. It starts at 2:30, so I suggest you to have coffee and then go to iFabrica. iFabrica is around the big Kromhout hall, and then there's the workshop there. It's a makerspace, so it's the perfect space to have this masterclass.
Yeah, and it's 1 stairs up.
It's
so
up the stairs, yeah, in the workshop space. So thank you very much, Jögge, for this screening and for this Q&A, and thank you for coming here. We have more screenings of beautiful films, so please stay for the weekend. And good luck with the masterclass. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.